Alex Antic is the Liberal Senator for South Australia, and he's always a man who's always clear-eyed when it comes to China. Alex, nice to talk to you again. What about these details we've heard in the past couple of days about what the devil in the detail was of Dan's Belt and Road deal, where essentially Chinese companies were going to be assisted in getting plenty more government contracts and plenty more, basically giving the Chinese an even greater foothold into the infrastructure games of Victoria?
Well, this is an extraordinary story, Paul, and you actually think about what's happened here. This is an MOU that's surfaced out of nowhere through a parliamentary process, as I understand it, in Victoria, that arguably should have been disclosed under the foreign arrangement scheme that was in place in December last year. But it's basically a document between the government of Victoria and an entity, or basically the government of China, the Chinese Communist Party, saying that the government in here, or in Victoria, will facilitate tendering processes, will open doors for Chinese companies, and do all the sorts of things that really should be alarm bells ringing. This is what the regime have done time and time again, have done so effectively, is target lower levels of government, including state governments, local governments, universities even, because they are easier picking than having a go at DFAT and the federal government, which have been across these games for years on end. So this is a very positive thing. It just goes to show that the foreign arrangement scheme is actually working. This is now a corollary to the tearing up of the Belt and Road initiative we saw earlier in April this year. But how many more are out there? What else is lurking under the cover of parliamentary privilege? I mean, this is frightening stuff.
Well, also, I mean, you make a really good point about how the coercive control, how the influence starts to get built by people like China. They know they can't come through the front door of the federal government. So as you say, you slowly but surely buy off a few industries with massive contracts that essentially make one-way traffic in terms of their relationship. Then you've got the scenario, of course, of, as you say, local government. I will help you out with some infrastructure here or there, and sister city relationships, former politicians, leading academics. So, of course, as soon as, apart from anything else, they all work as a patchwork of resistance when the federal government tries to turn around and stand up for national sovereignty, which is exactly what you're doing and exactly why they oppose it.
That's exactly right, Paul. And in fact, one of the troubles we get out of this is, on its surface, if you didn't know the regime like we know the regime, you'd think, well, what's the problem? These are public-private organisations arrangements, and we've been hearing about those for years on end. But the problem is that there really is almost no such thing when it comes to China, because every private company in China is either wholly owned by the government or is at least wholly coerced by the government. I mean, that's just the way the Chinese law works. Every company, we heard that with the TikTok argument earlier on in the year, there really is no way to escape this. If you're doing deals with Chinese businesses, then you're doing deals with the Chinese government. And this is exactly the sort of thing that the government wanted to root out with the foreign arrangement scheme. It's starting to work. It's starting to get these runs on the board. And it's a real lesson out there for local governments, universities, state governments of all makes and models, that you can't do deals against, whether this is or not, but against the national interest without the oversight of the federal government and DFAT. Simple as that.